Good morning. The title of this short video is called Walk You Backwards. What I mean is I'm trying to help you understand what we're using as money by starting from the present and walking you backwards slowly to see what we're using as money. Previous videos I said let's start at the Coinage Act of 1792, but I thought I'd do this one differently. What we're going to do is have you look at your economics books and ask yourself, does the economics textbooks in high school and in college have the words on the Federal Reserve notes that were issued in these three different time frames? The Federal Reserve notes from 1913 to 1933, the Federal Reserve notes from 1934 to 61, and the Federal Reserve notes from 1960 to present. I don't see any of the textbooks that have the three different Federal Reserve notes, because you don't understand what happened over time. This is part of the ignorance of what's going on. Now, let's look at your current Federal Reserve notes that you have in your wallet. Pull one out and look at it. And it says this was issued in 1962. Okay, go get one and pull it out and look at it. The wording on it says this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That's from 1962 to present day. Okay, the one previous to this Federal Reserve note was different. From the 1934 to 1961, the wording on it was this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and redeemable in lawful money. Think about that. You got a piece of paper that's not redeemable in anything. The previous Federal Reserve notes from 34 to 61 were redeemable in lawful money at the United States Treasury or the Federal Reserve Bank. Does any of you have any of those in your possession? No. So most of you do not understand what happened. You just assume the government knows what's going on and they're just printing you money and they change the wording on it for you don't know what reason or why. Your economics textbooks talk about economics. So let's do the other third one. There's the third one from the third Federal Reserve notes that were issued from 1913 to 1933. Let's think about this here. They were redeemable in gold coin on demand. Now, they're clear. They said they're redeemable in gold at the Treasury or lawful money at any Federal Reserve or Treasury, right? Think about this. You went from redeemable and nothing. You went from redeemable to lawful money, which you didn't define what was the money. I don't know what it is redeemable in. And then you went the previous ones were redeemable in gold. Now, think about this. You don't know the difference. Let's just go along here. 'Cause you don't know the difference. I didn't, and I'm teaching you something. I'm teaching you to look at this situation that is going on. Now I want you to think. These three pieces of paper that circulate all at the same time from 1913 to 1934, I'll show you the three that were side by side, circulated at the same time period in history. The gold certificates circulated in this era, those years. The silver certificates circulated, and they were issued by the government. They were redeemable in something, a gold coin or a silver coin. Now, here's what I'm going to interject for you to think. The Federal Reserve notes are issued from the private bank. The government agency they printed them up at the Bureau of Printing and Engraving. They sold them to the private Federal Reserve, and they were redeemable in gold or lawful money. Now, I want you to stop and think. Everybody assumes the Federal Reserve is a private bank and the banks are all a private business, and they're not. So the silver and gold certificates were redeemable from the Treasury. That's the difference. Okay, now the Federal Reserve Act that started in 1913 allowed the private banks, the Federal Reserve banks and the commercial banks to do what is called fractional reserve banking, which is immoral. It's similar to loaning out more gold than you have in deposit. The public doesn't know this. It's not listed in the books. Most people don't know this. They just don't know it. I had to do much research to find this out. And they had 40% gold as reserves from 1913 to 1933. Okay? So you can ask people, your bankers, your accountants, your bookkeepers, they don't know this. They simply don't know. Now, the government issued the gold certificates and the silver certificates, not the Federal Reserve notes. Okay? Now, there's a saying I'm going to tell you we're going to expand on this saying later. There was a saying called Gresham's Law, and it means bad money drives out good money. Okay? The bad money is the Federal Reserve notes, and nobody notices it. But I'll expand on it. I'm just going to give you the information later on. I'll explain it in detail. There's a saying called Gresham's Law, bad money drives out good. The Federal Reserve notes are now bad money, and they drove out the good money, the silver and gold certificates, which were redeemable in gold and silver coin based on the Coinage Act of 1792 in that era. If you read the Coinage Act of 1792, look it up. It's not in your textbooks. Again, we have information I'm giving you that's not in your economics books. That's why there's such mass ignorance about the subject money. Those people were fooled and deceived about what is known as fractional reserve banking back in 1913. Most people didn't know. They were farmers or poor people. They didn't have books. They just didn't know. This was during World War I and World War II, and everybody was distracted. Okay, so let's move on here. Oh, they also came up with this incorrect and not unclear word called elastic money supply, expanding and contracting, which was fraudulent. They allowed for more credit and decreased their credit. That's just what partly caused the so-called stock market crash, which that's another one I'll expand on. Stocks don't crash. Cars crash, buildings crash, people crash into things. This is another word I'm going to show you. I got another video that shows you that these words they're using, like crash and elastic, they're not specific and clear enough to explain what's going on. But they've gotten everybody to repeat the words that are vague and not more clear. So we've already asked the economics books and textbooks don't really explain the morality and common sense of fractional reserve banking. So let's continue here. The Continental Dollar, which was used before the Coinage Act of 1792, was a total failure, and the government had to remedy the situation. They had a piece of paper they printed up. Look up the two words Continental Dollar. It ended up as a disaster in using in their so-called economy. So the government the people had to figure out how to remedy the situation. In law, there's a phrase to seek remedy. To seek remedies to correct the mistakes, errors, or wrongdoing before a judge in a court of law makes the decision. So they had to seek remedy. What's the remedy? What is the solution to the situation of a worthless thing called a Continental Dollar, redeemable in nothing? The judge asks both parties if they sought remedy to solve a problem before coming to court. Well, the people back then, the founding fathers or whoever was involved, the remedy back in 1792 was the legal tender law, the Coinage Act of 1792, which was based on truth and fact and what is known as the system of just weights and measures. There's a symbol in court. You go look at it. It's a person called Lady Justice, and it has a balance scale. And that's based on weights. They're weights that are balanced, that are just. So the law in the court has to let you present just weights. Your weights are just. And the Continental Dollar was not just or was not anything. It was fraud. So let's go to the U.S. Constitution in 1787, and it states, this is before the Coinage Act of 1792. The Constitution states, no state shall make anything but gold and silver coin a tender of payment of debt. Now think about that. Anything is two words. That's in the original Constitution. It's spelled like that. Any space capital thing. So a lot of places are making it incorrect. They're not capitalizing the word thing, just like it's in the original Constitution. So they had to seek remedy based on previous law. When the Continental Dollar became a failure, they had to go back and say, wait a minute, we have to have gold and silver coin a tender of payment of debt. We have to define what's the gold and silver coin. What is the metal? How much does the metal weigh? Is it a big coin, a large coin? What is the gold and silver coin based on? So they had to create the Coinage Act. Well, they didn't have to, but they did. To seek remedy, they had to create the Coinage Act of 1792. And the last law written in the last section in the Coinage Act of 1792 states, and it further be enacted that the money of account shall be expressed in dollars. I want you to think and take a breath and walk around your room for a minute. What does that say? And it further be enacted that the money of account shall be expressed in dollars. It does not say the money is dollars. The money was gold and silver coins based on the Constitution 5 years previous. I want you to think. You have to sit and breathe and think in your mind and take a break and read this and think slowly to understand this. That's what I've done, and I'm giving to you in pieces so you can understand it. You get people that go along fast and talk gibberish. Ignore these people. So the money was gold and silver coin expressed in a dollar quantity. Now I'm asking you, when did the money become dollars like everybody says today? Everybody says the US dollar, the money's the dollar. There is no, this is a myth. This is the massive delusional confusion, deception by the people itself. The money isn't dollars. I'll read that again, and in further being enacted that the money of account, it's expressed in dollars, and it's expressed in a dollar quantity. Think about that, a dollar quantity of silver or gold in coin form. Now, if you said to me, I want a gallon of milk, the gallon isn't the milk. The gallon is a volume of measurement for liquid. Now, dollar of coin, see, they created, nobody talks about this law, but they created the word dollar from a different back. I'm not going to go back to where the word dollar originated. It's a distraction. I'll do that later. But the dollar quantity of silver in coin form. Think about that. The gold was expressed in a dollar quantity of silver in coin form. Unless you understand this, you can't have a discussion with people that are ignorant of the situation. That's why I'm putting this together in slow bits and pieces. Some of you will get enlightened. You'll have an epiphany. You'll say, my goodness, this guy is correct. Because it's based on the teachings of Merrill Jenkins Sr. mostly, and some others of the other authors such as Byron Dale, who wrote Bashed by the Bankers. Thornton wrote the book The Truth in Money. There's another book called The Debt Virus, and then The Creature from Jekyll Island, which I think I just said. So anyhow, that's it for that one. I hope you have a epiphany at some point.